Hello everybody, thank you for joining me for another IELTS listening preparation video. Today we're going to focus on the plan, map, or diagram labeling question type, and it's probably my favorite question type because it's so unique and offers a visual aid. And I find that visual aids, when given with a listening prompt, make things just a bit easier. However, this depends on how you prefer to learn and how you prefer to take tests. So for example, if you prefer something that's a bit straightforward, like multiple choice questions or matching questions, you may have a harder time with this type of question. If you consider yourself to be creative or thinking out of the box, you may really enjoy this question type because you'll be able to link visual cues with the picture and words and keywords that are being spoken in the prompt. So let's practice together. We'll see how you do with our step-by-step example. So first, I'm just going to give you an overview of this question type and tell you what it's all about. First off, you're going to have to fill in a visual aid with information. And this visual aid can either be a plan, so perhaps a plan for a new building, or a map, so maybe a map of a historical center, and a diagram. This diagram could be how yogurt is made, for example. And you may have to follow a process or follow directions that will be spoken by the speaker and fill in the questions accordingly. Now, answers are most likely in a logical order. By logical, I mean it's pretty straightforward in that it follows either the process, so going clockwise, or it follows the numbers. So if you have numbers 1 through 5, you can expect more than likely number 1 will be the first thing that is spoken. You should be listening for visual clues and keywords. Now, we'll go over these visual clues in just a bit. I'm talking about direction words, and the key words will be the information that is included in your plan, map, or diagram. The key words usually for this question type are minimal. So if you do underline your keywords, you're most likely going to be underlining the answers or orders of a process. I'll show you what I mean when we look at our example together. But again, this is why this is a great question type if you don't like to read your information or read your questions. This can actually probably help you because it's more visual in nature. As such, you'll need the scanning technique, so you'll have to scan with your ears and listen out for what the speaker is saying. Basically, you'll want to scan, listen for the keywords that you underline or the information that's included in your visual aid. And of course, like I said earlier with the visual clues, you'll have to understand direction words. We'll look at this in the next slide, but just keep in mind that you'll probably have to do some studying and brush up on your direction words before coming to the exam. This is extremely important because you could lose track when listening to the speaker if you're not quite sure of the direction words that are used in the listening prompt. So I've got this helpful guide here, and these are some phrases that are commonly used to talk about direction. Now, I've got a table with north and south. So north, if we think of a compass, and south down here. West, which would be going to the left, and east, which would be going to the right. I would suggest looking over these phrases. Now, the speaker might say on the top of or above to give directions that are north. You could also say to the north of something or slightly north of, which would be just a bit. Okay, slightly I've included in this table a few times because it's quite popular. Same thing here with south. Instead of top, you would have bottom, south of, to the south of. You could also say below, and again, we have slightly. Now with west, you want to orient this with left. You could also say left-hand side, and with east, you want to orient this with the right, so right-hand side as well. I would suggest checking out our lesson on our website, which I'll mention later on in the video, because in our lesson for this question type, we have a lot of phrases that are used for directions, and you should really brush up on those so that you are absolutely prepared for test day. Let's continue on and look at the guide for approaching this question type. Now, first, we're going to read the information that is listed on our visual aid. It's most likely going to be minimal because you're going to have to use it to label the visual aid. So think of these as labels or headings. As you read your information, you want to underline your key words. So steps 1 and 2 are done before listening. And when compared to the other question types, this preparation work is actually quite minimal. You'll have about 20 seconds to do both 1 and 2. With time and practice, you can combine these 2 steps. Now, going along with this, what I always like to do right at the very beginning is make a compass on my visual aid. So I'll make a compass similar to this, and I'll just write N for north, S for south, W for west, and E for east, just so that it is clear. This is really helpful, especially if you confuse west and east, and it really just takes 1 second to do. Now, as you're listening, you're going to pay attention to the direction language and the direction words and use that to go about your visual aid. And no matter what section you're in, you just want to take notes along the visual aid. If you've watched our introduction video or other videos that we have for listening, you'll see that some sections usually require an outline taking method, some require a chart making method, and it's usually based on the section in which you find your question. I'll give you a little tip. This question type is more than likely going to be paired with section 2. That's because section 2 features a monologue that is about a general or everyday topic. General or everyday topics would include things like a plan of a building, or a map of a historical center, or a diagram of a process. Because of that, it's really best to just take notes along the visual aid. You're only going to hear one speaker anyway, most likely, and so you can just follow the path that the speaker is referring to. We will also go over this in our step-by-step example in just a bit, but I'd like to just briefly review section 2 with you because, as you might have guessed, that is the section we're going to be in today. So section 2, it's a monologue, only one person speaking, about a general topic. In this case, it's going to be about a plan, a map, or a diagram. Of course, there's always some sort of pitfall or drawback to each section. We're going to tell you, try not to lose track, because if you lose track, you might lose the path of where the speaker is taking you along the visual aid. If this happens, though, not to worry. Use your keywords and the information provided to help get you back on track, but outline notes along your visual aid will really help you stay focused. Remember, we're going to make our notes along the visual aid today, so this will save you from any extra note-taking or writing during the listening prompt. All right, so that's all the preparation work and introduction about our question. Let's head on over and start our step-by-step example. All right, so here we are with our section 2 example. Now, as you see, there are questions 11 to 15, and we must label the plan below. It's a plan of a library, and we'll need 5 answers from the box. Now, keep in mind, we only have to write out letters. We do not have to write out art collection, for example. We just need to write out A. And this is why listening to the instructions is so important, because if you were to put the words instead of the letters, it would be marked incorrect. Now, before we listen to the instructions, I just want to let you know that I've already gone ahead and put in our compass. So we have north, south, west, and east here. And this will just help us go about the plan as the speaker is speaking. You might think that this is a tiny step, but it's really important, because if you think about it, you're listening to something that is not in your native language, and really any tips and tricks that you can place on your plan or diagram on test day will definitely help you out. Directions can be pretty straightforward, And you might think that putting this compass here is a bit on the beginner side of things, but really you never know what kind of nerves you're going to be faced with on test day or any type of anxiety. So I would suggest putting anything on here just to give you the maximum help that you can give yourself for this exam. Now, in order to mimic test day, we're going to play the instructions and we're going to give ourselves 20 seconds to look through this information. Now, like I said earlier, the information to underline here is going to be minimal, but I'm still going to underline things with you and show you how I would approach this. On test day, instructions are going to be pretty standard. Nothing is going to change much in the instructions. As long as you can understand what's going on, I would utilize that time to start underlining and really absorbing the plan and the diagram. So let's go ahead and listen to our instructions now.
You'll hear the librarian of a new town library talking to a group of people who are visiting the library.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start with our answer options and underline our keywords. I'm going to start with art because I see that art is a nice keyword. Collection is not so important in this case because collection probably would not be used without art. So I'm just going to underline art and save me on some time. I know it's a library, so I'm going to underline children's. Books is a little bit arbitrary here. Computers, great word here. I'll say local history because, again, collection is not going to be used without local history being used. So we just need local history. I'm going to underline meeting because I already know there are various rooms, so I don't need to underline room. Multimedia, periodicals, reference. Again, I know we're talking about books, so I'm not going to underline that. And anything about tourists. Information is not important in this case because it's pretty much understood. Now, if I look at our plan, I'm going to underline librarian here. Desk is a bit general, librarian is specific enough. Of course, entrance is important. I'll talk about this in just a bit. I'll underline here the office because we already know that we're looking at the library, so I'm not going to underline library office. Same thing here. I'm not going to underline library, but just area. Then, of course, fiction and nonfiction, these are important to know. And then the seminar. Again, they're all rooms, so there is no need to underline room in this case. Now, I even did this a bit slower than I would do it in reality, and it was already quite quick. So this is an excellent way to just quickly absorb the information, prepare yourself with your directions, and get ready for your listening. All right, so you might be wondering what these words are to the right. And just to make it a bit clearer for our diagram in this video, I've listened to the prompt already and I've made my notes. Since I'd like to make it a bit nicer for you and a bit clearer, I've written the notes that I used for the listening. And as we hear it together, I'm going to just place them where they should be on the map. This will help us later with our explanation. And you'll see these 3 dots here. This is a really great tool. As soon as the speaker starts the prompt, he or she will probably say where they are starting from. I'm going to use these dots to just say, okay, we are starting from here and we're going to continue onward. So marking the beginning of the listening prompt on your visual aid is a great clue, because if you happen to get lost, just like you would in real life, you would sort of trace back your steps to make sure you're going in the right direction. So these are my notes. You'll see during the listening prompt, I'm going to place them and take my own notes around the visual aid. You should do the same thing, or if you prefer, you could also watch me and see if you like my process and you can use it for yourself. All right, let's go ahead and listen to the prompt. Let's get ready.
Okay, everyone. So, here we are at the entrance to the town library. My name is Anne, and I'm the chief librarian here. And you'll usually find me at the desk just by the main entrance here. So, I'd like to tell you a bit about the way the library is organised and what you'll find where. And you should all have a plan in front of you. Well, as you see, my desk is just on your right as you go in. And opposite this, the first room on your left has an excellent collection of reference books and is also a place where people can read or study peacefully. Just beyond the librarian's desk on the right is a room where we have up-to-date periodicals such as newspapers and magazines. And this room also has a photocopier, in case you want to copy any of the articles. If you carry straight on, you'll come into a large room, and this is the main library area. There is fiction in the shelves on the left, and non-fiction materials on your right, and on the shelves on the far wall, there is an excellent collection of books relating to local history. We're hoping to add a section on local tourist attractions too, later in the year. Through the far door in the library, just past the fiction shelves, is a seminar room, and that can be booked for meetings or talks. And next door to that is the children's library, which has a good collection of stories and picture books for the under 11s. Then there's a large room to the right of the library area. That's the multimedia collection, where you can borrow DVDs and so on. And we also have CD-ROMs you can borrow to use on your computer at home. It was originally the art collection, but that's been moved to another building. And that's about it. Oh, there's also the library office on the left of the librarian's desk. Okay. Now, does anyone have any questions? Yes.
All right, perfect. So you'll see that I followed along with my mouse and I dragged over the notes that I took. Now, notice how these notes are generally the answers. The answers, however, that you would put on your answer sheet would be the actual letters. So do keep in mind you would not write these actual words on your sheet. All right, so I hope that you were able to follow along with me, and you'll see that it was quite clear. We had our dots that highlighted where we were coming from, and we just simply followed the speaker. Let's go ahead and look at the transcript that I've included on the right-hand side, just so that we can verify our answers. So this is exactly what we listened to. Let's look at number 11. I've written left because the speaker said she was going to the left of the entrance, and that is where they have great reference books. So this would be H. And I'll go ahead and just write the answers here as well. So we have number 11 as H. Let's go ahead and look why. She says, well, as you see, my desk is just on the right as you go in. And opposite this, so on the other side, the first room on your left has an excellent collection of reference books. And there we have it. If we follow along from here, we have number 12. She says just beyond the librarian's desk, so beyond would be forward, is a room where we have up-to-date periodicals. And from our key words, we saw that periodical was a key word, and so that should immediately call our attention to G. Now for 13, we have if you carry straight on, so we're here, we continue straight on, and we see the main library area, the fiction in the shelves on the left, and the nonfiction to your right. Now, you could have also put left instead of west, or left with west and right with east. That would have been fine. But in any case, you could see fiction here and nonfiction here. And on the shelves on the far wall, so I've listed far just as my keyword, there's an excellent collection of books relating to local history. Local history was one of our keywords, so we can go ahead and put D. Then continuing on, number 14, she says through the far door in the library. Now, These are not labeled as doors, but we can pretty much assume, and we can put two and two together and realize that these are doors. So through the far door in the library, just past the fiction, so here we are here, is a seminar room, and that is verified by our label here. And then the next door to that, which would be this here, is the children's library. And so children was, again, another key word, not books, but children. And she says this has a good collection of stories and picture books for under 11. So we can go ahead and put B for number 14. And then number 15, the last question, she states there's a large room to the right of the library area, the multimedia collection. And we had multimedia right here, was underlined, so we can go ahead and put F. And there we have our answers, H, G, D, B, and F. A couple things to note here, especially with number 15. Note how she said multimedia collection, yet collection was not part of answer F. However, it was part of answer A. And this is why collection is not a good keyword. Also D, collection is not necessarily a great keyword because the IELTS exam will use that general word somewhere else in the transcript to confuse you on purpose. So always remember to underline the specific key words, and you can avoid these tricks. Now, if you did get lost going through this map, I hope that you were able to get back on track with the speaker, with her directional phrases such as far beyond, opposite. These are all things that you can check out on our website and for our listening lessons, but direction words will really help you in this question type. All right, so that is all for our diagram and plan labeling question. Let's go back and just finish up this lesson with some helpful do's and don'ts. All right, it's time to wrap up this lesson. Before we get into our do's and don'ts, I just want to remind you that the strategy we looked at today was for a plan. Our example was a plan, but the strategy and everything else we discussed in this lesson can easily be applied to the diagram and map as well. So these three different question types are so similar that our example today uses the same strategy across the board. So don't worry if you are practicing with a diagram or a plan. What we did today will still apply. All right, so for our do's, with this question type, you really want to utilize your time. You may have noticed that there wasn't as much information and there were fewer words to underline when compared to the other question types. And this is great. You should use this to your advantage and really focus on the visual aid and make sure that you understand what it is. As you're listening, remember the order. Things will come in a logical order, and you can use your compass, your north, south, west, and east to your advantage. Remember that this question type will most likely be paired in section 2, so this way you can take notes directly on the visual aid. And of course, before you get to test day, study up on your direction words. We saw a lot today, like beyond, slightly, north, and south. Go ahead and visit us on our website, which I'll give you at the end of this lesson, to practice up on these and read our lesson for the most common phrases that you'll find for this question type. Now, things to avoid: do not waste your time. You might think that you have a lot of time beforehand since there are fewer words to underline, but you don't want to damage your chances of getting everything correct, so don't waste your time and underline your keywords. Of course, don't forget your question words. This goes hand in hand with preparation and studying, and make sure that you're not underlining general terms. So by this, I mean collection or books in our example today. Underline only the specific key words. Don't worry and don't get confused over directions. If you find that you are losing your place, just remember your direction words and try to find where the speaker is in the prompt. That's why your compass will really come in handy. And last but not least, like any other listening section, don't leave anything blank. This really hurts your chances of even guessing correctly. So definitely don't do that. Try your best guess. It's better than nothing. All right, thank you so much. I hope that you have enjoyed this lesson. If you found this to be a little bit difficult, I would encourage you to just practice more and try your best at charts and understanding visual aids. Look at maps, look at diagrams, and see if you can label them or talk about them in English just to give you some practice with using a visual aid. Of course, you can definitely follow us and visit us at www.bestmytest.com/IELTS. There's a lot of great practice here for the listening portion of the exam and just anything in the IELTS exam. So go ahead and visit us, and we hope to see you for the next lesson. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.